Have you ever stopped to think about how much of your identity, who you really are, you actually chose for yourself? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the social blueprint that shapes every single one of us, and we're zeroing in on two of the biggest pillars, class and gender. Who are you? I mean, it sounds so simple, right? But it's a question we answer every single day, often without even saying a word. It's in the clothes we pick, the way we talk, the people we hang out with. But here's the twist. What if the answer isn't entirely up to you? What if our identities aren't just something we dream up, but something that society helps build for us, sometimes in ways we don't even see? And that brings us right to this core idea, social identity. The best way to think about it is like this. Society kind of hands us a script based on the groups we belong to. Are you working class, middle class, a man, a woman? And that script comes with all these built-in expectations for how we're supposed to act. So where do these scripts even come from? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is our social class. And one of the clearest ways we can see that class blueprint in action is by looking at what we all do for a living, our jobs. Okay, so take the working class. It's seen this really fascinating shift. The traditional working class identity was really forged in factories and mines. It was all about manual labor and super tight-knit communities. But as all that industry faded away, this new working class popped up, mostly in service jobs. For a lot of people, work became less about who you are and more just a way to pay the bills. But what's really interesting is that even with all those changes, that deep sense of being working class, that often sticks around. Now, if we jump over to the middle class, well, that's not one single thing at all. It's a whole spectrum. You've got professionals, like doctors, right, with a ton of education and freedom in their work. Then there are managers who are all about power and climbing the career ladder. You've got intellectuals, consultants. It's so broad that it even includes people in routine service jobs, because the key difference here is that the work is non-manual. And then, right at the very top of that pyramid, you find the upper class. This group used to be all about owning land, the old aristocracy. But today, their identity is defined by something else entirely, just immense wealth. But let's be real. Immense is a word we throw around. What does it actually mean in this context? The scale of it is almost impossible to wrap your head around. We are talking about just 1%. 1% of the entire population of the planet. So think about that. This tiny, tiny slice of humanity, just 1 out of every 100 people, they own an absolutely staggering 40% of all the wealth in the entire world. That is the kind of economic power that defines the modern upper class. Okay, so class gives us this really powerful economic blueprint for our identity. But there's another blueprint, one that's just as powerful, that shapes our lives from the second we're born, gender. This quote right here is the key to this whole next section. The idea is that we aren't just born men and women. We learn how to become them. Masculinity and femininity aren't just biology. They are roles that society teaches us how to play. So this is a super important distinction to make. Biological sex, that's about the physical body, the hardware, if you will. Social gender, on the other hand, is all about the social characteristics and behaviors that a culture decides are right for each sex. One is nature. The other is all about nurture. It's what we learn. So, historically, society has pushed these two big, ideal versions of gender. For men, it's what sociologists call hegemonic masculinity. You know the type. Strong, the leader, the provider, doesn't show emotion. And for women, it was emphasized femininity, passive, emotional, and there to support men. These were the dominant scripts we were all handed. But, of course, real life is way more complicated than just two little boxes, right? In reality, there is a whole wide spectrum of different ways to be masculine and feminine. So beyond that one dominant ideal, you have all these other ways of being a man. Some are considered subordinate, kind of looked down on for not fitting that tough guy mold. Others are subversive, and they actively challenge that ideal. Think of the serious student who values books over brawn. Then you've got complicit masculinity, like the new man who's all about sharing housework and seeing women as equals. And finally, marginalized masculinities, which is often felt by men who, say, lose their job and feel like they can't be that traditional provider anymore. So how does this all happen? How do we learn these gender scripts? Well, it starts when we're kids, through 4 key steps. There's manipulation, telling girls to worry about their appearance while telling boys to be brave. Canalization, that's steering kids towards boy toys like trucks and girl toys like dolls. Verbal appellation, just using different words, calling a girl pretty and a boy strong. And finally, different activities, where kids just watch and copy the gendered roles they see their parents doing every day. And this whole process, which is so deeply rooted in our childhood, doesn't just create one type of woman. Nope. Just like with masculinity, female identities are really diverse, and they've been evolving pretty dramatically. You can almost see a story of evolution here. It starts with what are called contingent femininities, where a woman's identity is mostly defined by men. But then you see the rise of assertive identities. Think of the girl power movement, which really started to push back. And that has led to more autonomous femininities, where women are defining themselves through their own careers and education, competing on their own terms. So when you put it all together, here's the big takeaway. Our identity isn't something we just magically invent out of thin air. We build it from a social toolkit, a blueprint of class and gender roles that's handed to us by the society we happen to be born into. And that really just leaves us with one final big question. For you, now that you've seen the blueprint, now that you know it exists, take a good, hard look in the mirror. Which parts of your own identity did you truly, consciously choose? And which parts, maybe, were chosen for you?